Tony Cartledge, I wonder if you could tell us more about the pointy end of the truth rundown. I seem to remember you saying that you've both delivered and received it. I want to try and understand what happens when someone actually recants a true fact they've previously expressed. How are they persuaded to profess a new belief that contradicts what they know to be true? Is it all for show and everybody knows that the Church of Scientology is just trying to quell public criticism or opposition? Or are they deadly serious in trying to change the solid foundation of what a person believes? And are there irreparable consequences, or do people simply revert to the truth in their mind when there is no longer the same pressure to conform? I find the whole business insidious and very troubling. All right, Tony, thank you very much for this question. And I wish I had the very few, 3 or 4 issues that L. Ron Hubbard wrote or that were written in his name concerning the truth rundown, but they have never, ever leaked out of the church. They are not available anywhere. So all I have is to go off of is my memory of this. And what I can tell you about the pointy end of the truth rundown is that there is some indoctrination that occurs as part of it that I thought I'd let you guys in on. And this is a bulletin Hubbard wrote called Dub-In and Delusion. And this basically lays out in a single page the basic theory behind why the truth rundown is how it's sold to Scientologists to do. Now, something I have to start with, though, here is remember the truth rundown is almost exclusively for the Sea Org. Very, very few public people in Scientology or even staff members have ever received it. Leah Remini is one. And one person in all the years that I was in the Sea Org in Los Angeles, one public person received it that I knew about. Maybe others did, certainly, but I didn't hear about it. I didn't even know about it or had heard much of anything about it until I did the RPF. The Rehabilitation Project Force. And on that program, almost everybody does it. And that means you give it and you receive it. And I delivered it to 2 different people. And then I received it myself. Okay. So this dub-in and delusion, what is that about? Hubbard took the term dub-in from the film industry, where you lay in a new soundtrack over an existing one in order to, put sounds there that weren't there originally. And Hubbard calls this in the mind. He says that there is a dub-in process that occurs where people will fool themselves about their memories or about what happened because they are trying to rationalize or justify their own moral transgressions, or what Hubbard calls overts or overt acts. If you commit an overt in Scientology, you have done a bad thing. If I come up and just punch you in the face, I committed an overt against you. And Hubbard says that when you commit an overt, there's a sequence of events where when you commit an overt against somebody, you then crave what Hubbard calls a motivator, something that motivated you to do it. I walk up to you and I punch you in the face for no good reason. I've got no reason whatsoever to do it. You never did anything to me. Maybe we've never even met. Like, what is this psychotic activity? Well, in my mind, in order for me to make it okay that I just walked up and punched you in the face, I have to believe that there was something that motivated me to do that. And that motivator is something the person I punch in the face, something that person did to me, or something about them that motivates me to do that. And it's not their skin color or their gender or race or any of that. I'm not talking, that's not a motivator. A motivator is an overt you committed against me, right? I find out, okay, for example, maybe out of sight, out of mind. Here, let's take it out of you and me, and let's say Joe and Bill. Okay, so Joe sleeps with Bill's wife. Okay, Bill finds out about it. Now Bill has a motivator. Joe slept with his wife. Now Bill is going to go and punch Joe in the face, and he's got a valid motivator to do it. Okay, but what Hubbard insists is always true, is that if you commit an overt against somebody that was not prompted by a motivator earlier, you'll make one up. 100% of the time, you're going to make one up. You have to have a motivator, because if you don't, then you know what you did was wrong and evil and unprompted and it was an unsolicited bad act. And it doesn't just have to be punching somebody in the face. It can be anything that you think of as a bad act. Even, telling lies or rumors about somebody could be an overt against them. So why'd you do it? Right? Well, they looked at me funny. Well, looking at you funny is hardly much of a motivator, right? But some people will use that and cling to it as their justification for why they had to commit an overt against that person. So Hubbard puts there that this is the reason why this happens, and therefore those motivators, this is called the overt motivator sequence. Now, Hubbard goes further and says that the motivator can be made up and can even be delusional. You can just make up out of nowhere stuff that just never happened, never existed, doesn't have anything to do with reality at all. And if that motivator, if that thing you're coming up with happens to pretty hardcore slime or black PR or give a really bad impression about the target of your crime, right? Then you're engaging in black PR, okay, black propaganda. Rumor mongering, whispering campaigns, telling bad news, spreading discontent, spreading discord, right? In Scientology, this is called spreading and theta. Propagating false news, fake information, right? We have lots and lots of terms for this kind of concept because it's kind of common. We do this all the time. But Hubbard puts there that in the Truth Rundown, what you're doing is you're going back and undoing that dub-in, those made-up explanations for why you did bad things. So here you are, a Scientology staff member, and you work in the Treasury Division, or let's say one day you're walking by the Treasury Division and the cash box is open and there's some money, there's some cash there, and it looks unaccounted for. And you're like, I'm hungry, I got to eat. Go take some money, right? And then Hubbard says, according to Hubbard, right, because you did that, you could then dream up, well, this organization never pays me. They don't pay anybody. Nobody gets paid here. So I had to do it. I had to take the money, right? This is your motivator. And you're making this up. You're dubbing this in. You're inventing this idea. And then you start spreading it around to other people. Oh, this place sucks. They don't pay their staff. Nobody gets paid here. I don't know why anybody would want to work here. I mean, eventually this is what it comes to, because you might start smaller, but you know how these things build up. And here you are now spreading all these vicious lies about the organization because of your own transgressions. You stole money. And that's what justifies this. This is what justifies that is you're now running around spreading, being a poison pill to the organization because of your overt. Okay. This is how Hubbard explains it. And he says this happens 100% of the time. Now, obviously, anybody listening to this is going to see elements of truth in this. We all have guilty consciences, every single one of us. There is not one human being who is pure as the driven snow and never has been. So we constantly run into moral confusions and transgressions and issues and problems daily. This is the stuff of living. But Hubbard decided to take this and codify this sort of mechanism that he lays over it, called this overt motivator sequence, and then further asserts that when you engage in these kind of moral transgressions, these overts, you are going to engage in dub-in and delusion. And he goes further and says it has to be a serious overt in order for you to engage in this kind of activity, this level of dubbing and delusion. It's not a passing thing. It doesn't happen to every single person every single time. Every time they commit an overt, they go, psychically mad. It's when you commit serious overts. And in Scientology, stealing from an organization is one of the most serious overts you can commit there. I mean, let's remember, Scientology is a money-making scam at its heart. It's all about the money. So Scientology is all about all the details of their money. So if you mess with their money, you mess with those details in any way, even accidentally, they're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks, right? Money's a real big hot topic there in that world. So you go, so what's going on in the mind of the person? Well, I needed to give you all that information first so you would understand what the indoctrination is. Because every Scientologist buys into this. They accept what I just told you is absolutely true. This always happens. This overt motivator thing always occurs. And when serious overts are being talked about here, are being committed, right? Murder, theft, larceny, graft, extortion. I mean, really serious stuff. Embezzlement, theft from the organizations. Hubbard insists that you're going to have this kind of dub-in and delusion occur where the person has to justify or rationalize their overt by inventing things that the leaders or the principals of the organization are doing that are bad or wrong. And this is why Scientologists buy into this and therefore believe that people like me, Leah, Mike, Tony, etc., are all just complaining bitterly about Scientology because of our own overts. They truly believe that. They think that everything we have to say about the abuses and the trauma we experienced and the suffering that we saw and the financial crimes and all the stuff we talk about, we're all just dubbing it in. We're just making it all up out of our crimes, because we're so obsessed with justifying our crimes and not coming clean on them that we have to make up all these excuses and reasons and rationalizations and justifications for why we committed those overts. And it gets so bad, Hubbard says, that you actually even forget about the overts you committed, and you are 1,000% sure that this new reality you've created, that you're dubbing in, this delusory reality that you're inventing, is true. You're going to believe it. You're absolutely going to believe it, right? And you need the truth rundown in order to cut through that and get to the overts and get the person to confess. And by confessing, so once you're indoctrinated, see, here's the thing about the truth rundown. Let's go right back down to the brass tacks of the truth rundown now. Without all of that indoctrination I just gave you, the truth rundown wouldn't work because you wouldn't be in the right frame of mind. It's all about, this is where this mental manipulation is so important. So I have to convince you, L. Ron Hubbard has to convince you that it is your moral transgressions that are behind why you are complaining so bitterly about the organization. And that way, when you confess to your crimes, you're primed mentally, psychologically, to think, oh, that's why I thought David Miscavige beats his staff. That's why I thought the organization was ripping people off. That's why I thought the staff didn't get paid, is because of that time I took that money. Oh. And what the person themselves then does, because they have to believe that this whole overt motivator sequence and dubbing and delusion is all true, because L. Ron Hubbard can't be wrong in this picture. Remember, we're talking about Scientologists. L. Ron Hubbard's always right. So if L. Ron Hubbard's always right, then that means that my memories of what I saw, staff not getting paid, David Miscavige beating up on people, whatever it is that that the person saw or experienced, they then sell themselves on how that was all just delusion. Oh, I just made all that up. I can't believe it. because they're memories, they're pictures, right? They're just memories. And the person rewrites those memories as delusion. They put a big label on it that says, this never happened, this wasn't true, or this didn't occur. And they lie to themselves about it. And they go into a kind of enforced denial about what actually happened to them in order to make L. Ron Hubbard real and true and make his words real, right? In order for this whole overt motivator sequence, right? You get it. So I think I've explained that pretty thoroughly. So that's what's going on in the person's head, is they do it to themselves. They basically enforce an incredibly strong level of denial on themselves. And that's how it works. And I'm just going to check and see here. Oh, yeah. Now, you also asked about whether there were any irreparable consequences to this, or do people simply revert to the truth when it's no longer the group pressure to conform? Okay. No, this is not permanently psychologically damaging. You can walk back from this, but it can be traumatizing. So you might need some help along the way, okay? We got to be careful about this kind of thing because, there's also the other end of the pendulum swing on this is repressed memory syndrome where, all these things that never happened to you are suddenly recovered memories. You don't want to go in that direction too far either. So it really is going to be context specific with each individual as to how they go about approaching recovery from Scientology. But I do believe this is part of the recovery process, is recovering true memories and getting rid of or stopping the denial of, the nonsense. Okay, so you've got that. And then as far as, people simply reverting to the truth in their minds, that tends to happen once a person gets out of Scientology, as they then are able to start thinking more critically, more freely, more openly, and with more perspective about their past experiences. They're no longer having to wall off or deny whole swaths of their experience because it doesn't conform with what the cult leader says or what the group says needs to be true. When a group is demanding a truth from a person, that is quite a powerful feeling. It is quite a powerful experience. And people conform. They tend, in the majority, to conform with what the group expects or wants, and even sell themselves on what they're conforming to rather than hold on to, their own idea of what's true or what's real based on their own perceptions. So this is already a thing. With the number of mind control or thought reform techniques that are laid in on a person when they're part of a destructive cult, that crap lingers. And without work on it and really working it over and applying critical thinking, it's not a guarantee that a person's going to recover from that or give those ideas up or stop denying, what they're in denial about. They might not ever come out of that. So it does take doing the work. But when you get out of that group situation and those pressures are no longer on you to conform, the chances are a lot better that you're going to, over time start rethinking things. But again, very, very dependent on the individual. Some people are incredibly uncurious about their own past, or they come out of a cult trauma experience and they don't want to go anywhere near it. It's painful. It hurts. These are painful memories for them. So it's understandable. Again, that's why there, some help or some assistance or some therapy might be in order in those circumstances. So anyway, I hope all that answers that question, or at least gives you a little bit more food for thought about what's going on the Truth Rundown.